All right, let's dive into natural law. We're taking a deep dive today.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at the natural law transcripts.
Okay.
And, it's all about freedom and morality and maybe even how we, like, create our own reality.
Right.
It's heady stuff,
Yeah,
but I think we can make it really relatable.
I think so too.
So what's really interesting to me is this idea that, like, there are these natural laws
Yeah.
that kind of govern how things work, like even in human society, right?
It's like a blueprint for human behavior, you know?
Yeah.
Just like we have gravity,
Right.
we also have these principles that kind of govern how we interact with each other and the consequences of our actions.
And it's not like we invented these laws.
No.
It's like they're there,
They're inherent.
and we have to kind of figure them out.
We discover them,
Yeah.
and then we can learn to work with them just like we do with the laws of physics.
Okay, so that makes me think about this idea of what natural even means in this context.
Well, natural basically refers to what's inherent,
Okay.
fundamental to nature, to reality itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something we create.
Right.
It's something that we discover.
Okay.
It's already there.
That makes this whole idea of natural law being occult
Right.
kind of even more intriguing, right?
Exactly.
Because occult just means hidden, right?
Yeah.
So it's like this hidden code that's operating whether we're aware of it or not.
It's like the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
It's all around us.
So then the question is, who benefits from this knowledge being hidden?
Well, that's the big question.
Right.
You know, the source material suggests that those in power
Okay.
might want to keep this knowledge hidden, right? Because if people understand natural law,
Yeah.
they become more empowered.
Right.
They understand their rights.
That's like, it levels the playing field a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder how those forces might be impacting our lives right now.
It really does, right? Like, how much of what we see and experience is shaped by these, like, forces that are trying to keep us in the dark about these principles?
Yeah, and that leads us to the difference between nescience and ignorance.
Okay, now those are two words
Yeah,
I don't use very often.
most people don't.
So break those down for me.
Okay, so nescience means not knowing something because the information simply isn't available.
Okay,
Right.
got it.
Ignorance, on the other hand, is not knowing something, even though the information is readily available.
Oh, okay.
You're choosing not to know.
So in a world where we have access to so much information,
Yeah,
are we truly nescient about natural law?
that's a good question.
Or are we willfully ignorant?
Right, are we choosing
Yeah,
to stay
yeah.
asleep?
It's almost like we're in this consensus trance, right?
Yeah,
Where most people are just kind of sleepwalking through life.
totally.
And if you think about it, the word hypnosis,
hmm
which is related to consensus trance, literally means suppression of knowledge.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
So that makes you think.
It does.
Okay, so let's talk about truth and perception, because this
Okay.
comes up a lot, right?
That's the top.
People say perception is reality,
Right.
but is it really?
Well, the source material suggests that truth is objective.
Okay.
It exists independently of our beliefs or perceptions.
So, like, even if I don't believe in gravity,
Exactly.
it's still going to work, right?
It's still going to pull you down.
Yeah.
So it's like the sun,
Mhm.
you know, you can believe it's a giant ball of burning gas or a chariot driven by a god, but it's still there and it still functions the same way.
So our perceptions might shape our experience,
Right.
but they don't change the underlying truth.
Exactly.
That makes me think about solipsism,
Yeah.
which is the belief that only your own mind is certain to exist,
Oh, yeah.
and therefore, like, nothing outside of your own mind can really be known for sure.
That's a dangerous path.
It is.
Because if nothing can really be known,
Right.
then why bother learning or trying to change anything?
Right. It just leads to this kind of apathy and inaction.
Exactly.
I feel like it could even be used as a tool for control.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in movements that emphasize the subjective nature of reality.
Right.
If you can convince people that truth is relative
Yeah.
and there's no objective standard,
Then it's easy to manipulate them.
it becomes much easier.
So to understand how we break free from this,
Okay.
let's talk about consciousness and the
Okay,
brain.
Let's do it.
Because I think sometimes people get those two confused, right?
They do.
So how do you define consciousness?
Well, think of consciousness as your ability to recognize patterns and find meaning,
Okay.
both within yourself and in the world around you. It's the essence of who you are.
So it's like the software and
Yeah.
the brain is the hardware.
That's a good analogy. The brain is the physical instrument through which your consciousness expresses itself.
So what happens when the hardware gets messed up?
Well, just like a computer,
Yeah.
the brain can become imbalanced.
Right.
And that can lead to all sorts of problems.
Like what?
Well, imagine someone who's hyper-focused on logic and analysis,
Okay.
constantly overthinking and dissecting everything.
So like an overactive left brain.
Exactly.
Right.
This can lead to a very cold and detached view of the world.
And then on the other hand, you might have someone who's overly emotional, easily swayed by their feelings.
Right, possibly an overactive right brain, and this can lead to a sense of helplessness.
Okay, so it's all about finding that balance.
Finding balance is key.
Right,
Yeah.
between our logical mind and our emotional heart.
It's about integrating those two
Okay,
so that they work in harmony.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about right and wrong in the context of natural law,
Okay.
because this is where things can get a little tricky. And it's important to note that we're not talking about political left versus right.
No, not at all.
This is about something much deeper.
This is about objective morality.
Right, so there's an actual difference
Yeah.
between right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we define those things?
Well, the source material defines right action or moral action
Okay.
as any action that does not harm another living being or their property.
So basically, don't hurt people
Yeah.
and don't take their stuff.
Don't mess with their stuff.
Okay.
Wrong action is any action that does cause that kind of harm.
So it all boils down to harm,
It does.
whether you're causing harm or
I
not.
think that's the key distinction.
And they specifically call out theft as the ultimate wrong action.
Theft in all its forms.
Right. And it's not just about, like, stealing someone's wallet.
No.
It's about any act of taking something that doesn't rightfully belong to you.
It could be fraud, manipulation, even suppressing information.
So even lying could be considered a form of theft.
In a way, yeah, if you're withholding information that someone has a right to know.
Wow, that's a really interesting way to look at it.
It is.
So living morally means respecting the life, liberty, and property of others.
That's the foundation.
But I can see how navigating this can get really tricky in the real world.
Absolutely.
It's not always black and white.
There are lots of gray areas.
So how do we strengthen our conscience
That's the key.
to be able to navigate those gray areas effectively?
It's a process of continuous learning and growth.
Okay.
The more we understand these principles, the better equipped we are to handle those tough situations.
So it's not just about, like, memorizing a list of rules.
No, it's about developing a deep understanding.
Right.
So you can apply them thoughtfully in any situation.
It's about becoming more conscious,
Exactly.
not just following a checklist.
It's about cultivating that inner compass.
Yeah.
So you can navigate the nuances of life with confidence.
Okay, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we've talked about in natural law, this idea of it being hidden and the importance of developing our conscience.
Yeah.
But how does all of this relate to authority?
Good question.
Right, because, like, who gets to decide what's right and wrong?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The source material suggests that true authority doesn't come from force or coercion,
Okay.
but from alignment with natural law itself.
So it's not about who has the most power or the loudest voice.
It's about who's living in accordance with these universal principles.
So a true leader is someone who embodies these principles
Exactly.
and inspires others to do the same.
Through their actions.
Not by forcing them,
Right.
but by, like, being an example.
Leading by example.
Right.
That's powerful.
Okay, so that makes me think about self-ownership, too.
Yeah,
This idea that we are sovereign beings
Yeah.
responsible for our own lives and choices.
absolutely.
So it's about recognizing our inherent right to freedom and autonomy.
That's the core of it.
Yeah.
When you understand that you own yourself, you become empowered to make choices that align with your values.
And to resist any attempts to control or enslave you.
You become the author of your own story.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, and that brings us to the 2 pillars of enlightenment.
Oh, yeah, those are important.
Can you remind me what those are?
The first pillar is the non-aggression principle,
Okay.
sometimes called the golden rule.
Right. Do no harm.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about respecting the sovereignty of others.
And choosing peaceful interaction whenever possible.
That's the key.
Okay.
The second pillar is the self-defense principle,
Okay.
which recognizes your inherent right to protect yourself from violence or aggression.
So it's not about being passive
No.
or a doormat.
It's about standing up for yourself
Yeah.
and refusing to be a victim.
So it's about finding that balance between
Peace and strength.
right.
Yeah.
Between respecting others but also protecting yourself.
You need both.
The source material really emphasizes that both of these principles are essential
Absolutely.
for true freedom and enlightenment.
They go hand in hand.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the lost word.
Oh, yeah, the lost word.
Can you refresh my memory on what that is?
The lost word is both no and no.
Okay.
It's about knowing your rights,
Mm-hmm.
knowing the difference between right and wrong,
Right.
and having the courage to say no to anything that violates natural law.
So it's about taking a stand
It is.
for what you believe in.
It's about reclaiming your sovereignty
Yeah.
and saying no to those who would try to control you.
Wow. There's so much power in that simple word, no.
There is.
Right.
It's a word of power.
So reclaiming that lost word is essential for breaking free from these systems of control
Yeah.
and creating a world based on freedom and justice.
That's the goal.
But that sounds like a pretty big undertaking.
It is a big undertaking.
And the source material calls it the true great work.
It is the true great work.
So what guidance does it offer?
Well, first of all, it emphasizes the importance of clear communication.
Okay.
Avoiding jargon, avoiding overly complex language.
So making it accessible.
Exactly.
So meeting people where they are
That's it.
and speaking to their hearts as well as their minds.
You got to connect on both levels.
Right.
Yeah.
And probably being patient too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because not everyone is going to get this right away.
Not at all.
It's a process.
The journey.
Right.
Yeah,
Of awakening.
exactly.
So maybe the most powerful thing we can do is simply live our lives
Yeah.
in alignment with these principles.
Be the change.
Right.
Yeah.
And inspire others
Uh-huh.
through our actions.
That's powerful.
Not by preaching,
No.
but by being a living example.
Exactly.
Okay, I love that.
Good.
Okay, welcome back to our deep dive on natural law.
Yeah.
Last night we were talking about morality and conscience and self-ownership, like all that good
The
stuff.
foundations.
Yeah, the foundation. So now I want to talk about how those principles actually play out in the real world.
Okay. Yeah.
How do we actually live this stuff?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So the source material talks about something called the law of freedom.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept.
Okay, tell me about it.
It basically states that freedom and morality are directly proportional.
Okay.
So as morality increases in a society,
Yeah.
so does freedom.
So a more moral society is a freer society.
Exactly.
Okay, that kind of makes sense.
It's intuitive, right?
Yeah.
But then the question becomes, how do we define morality?
Right. Because that's not always so clear-cut.
No, it's not always black and white.
But the source material does give us a starting point, right?
It does.
It defines right action
Mhm.
as any action that doesn't harm other people or their property.
Right. So basically,
Don't hurt people and don't take their stuff.
don't mess with their stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wrong action is any action that does cause that kind of harm.
That's the distinction.
And we talked about theft earlier
Right.
being like the ultimate wrong action.
In all its forms.
Right. And that includes not just physical theft, but also like fraud and manipulation, even like withholding information.
Anything that violates someone's property rights.
Wow. So living morally really means respecting the life, liberty, and property of others.
That's the foundation.
Okay. Got it.
But navigating that in our complex world, it can get tricky.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It's not always easy to see the right path.
So how do we strengthen our conscience to be able to deal with those tricky situations?
Well, like we talked about earlier, it's a process of continuous learning and growth.
Right. So we've got to keep learning and growing.
Yeah, the more we understand these principles,
Yeah.
the better equipped we are to handle those tough situations.
So it's not about just following a set of rules blindly.
No, it's about developing that deep understanding.
Yeah.
So we can apply these principles thoughtfully in any situation.
It's about becoming more conscious,
Exactly.
not just going through the motions.
Yeah. Right.
It's about cultivating that inner compass.
That's the key.
Yeah. So we can navigate the nuances of life.
With confidence and integrity.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
It's like we're becoming more aware of our choices and the impact they have.
And their consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about morality and conscience.
Mm-hmm.
But what about those systems and structures that sometimes seem to contradict natural law?
Ah, yeah, that's a big one.
Right, like governments, corporations, even religious institutions.
Yeah, those can be tricky.
How do we reconcile those with this idea of individual sovereignty?
Well, the key here is to remember that true authority doesn't come from a position of power.
Okay.
It comes from alignment with natural law itself.
So it's not about blindly obeying those in positions of authority.
No, not at all.
It's about evaluating their actions based on these principles.
Exactly.
Okay.
No individual or organization is above natural law.
That makes me think about consent.
Oh, yeah, consent is huge.
Because it seems like natural law places a high value on individual consent.
Absolutely.
Right.
True authority and governance stem from the voluntary cooperation of individuals.
Not from coercion or force.
Exactly.
So it's about moving away from systems of control and domination
Yeah,
and towards systems based on voluntary cooperation and mutual respect.
that's the ideal.
Okay, so all of this sounds really great in theory.
Yeah,
But I have to admit, it feels a little overwhelming.
I understand.
Like, how do we actually create this kind of fundamental change?
Well, it starts with each of us.
Okay.
It starts with self-education,
Yeah.
self-ownership, and embodying these principles in our own lives.
So leading by example.
Leading by example, that's powerful.
Okay.
It's not about waiting for someone else to fix things.
Right.
It's about being the change we want to see in the world.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah, it's empowering, right?
It is.
It's about understanding that we are not powerless.
Yeah.
We have the power to make a difference.
We don't have to do it alone, right?
Absolutely not.
The source material talks about the importance of community.
Community is essential.
Right. Finding your tribe, your people who resonate with these ideas.
Yeah, having a supportive community can make all the difference.
Because we're social creatures.
We are. We need each other.
We need that support.
Yeah. It makes the journey easier and more joyful.
Okay, so we've talked about morality, conscience, true authority, the power of community.
A lot of good stuff.
But I'm curious how, like, our thoughts and emotions and actions fit into all of this.
Oh, that's a great question.
Right. Like, what's going on inside of us?
That brings us to the core of how natural law plays out in our daily experience.
Okay, let's dive into that. I'm ready to explore those inner workings.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, welcome back to the final part of our natural law deep dive.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It has, right? We've been talking about morality and conscience and true authority and community and all this, like, really big stuff.
Big picture stuff.
Yeah. But now I kind of want to zoom in a little bit
Okay.
and talk about how all of this impacts our thoughts and emotions and actions,
Right.
you know,
Right, yeah.
like what's happening on the inside.
That's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, totally.
It's about how these principles operate within us. It's
Yeah.
not just about external actions, but about cultivating that inner alignment.
So it's not just what we do, but how and why we do it.
Exactly.
Okay, so the source material talks about how our thoughts are like the seeds of our reality.
They are.
They have this creative power to
Mhm.
shape our experiences.
Yeah, thoughts are powerful.
And then our emotions
Right.
kind of provide the energy and the motivation to act on those thoughts.
They fuel a fire.
And then finally, our actions are like the physical manifestation
Yeah.
of those thoughts and emotions out in the world.
It's like a chain reaction.
It is, right.
Yeah.
Thoughts create emotions, emotions fuel action, and actions create our reality.
That's the process of creation.
Okay, I like that a lot. But then that makes me think about brain balance again.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That's crucial.
Because we were talking earlier about how like an imbalanced brain can lead to all these like
Yeah.
distorted perceptions
Distorted perception.
and destructive behaviors.
And a lot of suffering.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's about finding that balance within ourselves
Finding that equilibrium.
to make sure that our thoughts and emotions and actions are all working together.
Working in harmony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we cultivate that inner balance?
Well, mindfulness is a great tool.
Okay, mindfulness.
Yeah, taking the time to observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment.
So like just noticing them
Noticing them.
without
Yeah.
getting all caught up in
Without getting swept away by them.
Okay, so it's about creating space between our thoughts and our reactions
Yeah.
so we can choose how we respond instead of just reacting automatically.
That space gives you freedom.
It does, right?
Yeah. Okay.
It gives you the power to choose.
No.
Okay, so what about emotions?
Oh, emotions, those are powerful.
Yeah, they can be really intense.
They can be overwhelming sometimes.
So how do we work with them?
Well, the source material talks about emotional intelligence,
Okay.
which is the ability to understand your own emotions,
Okay.
but also the emotions of others.
So it's not about suppressing them
No, not at all.
or pretending they're not there?
It's about becoming aware of them
Yeah.
and learning to manage them effectively.
Okay, so we've got to get good at feeling our feelings.
You got to feel them to heal them.
Okay, I like that.
And it's about channeling that emotional energy constructively.
So instead of letting it control us,
Right.
we can use it to fuel positive action.
Emotions can be a powerful source of motivation.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes me think about self-reflection.
Yeah, self-reflection is essential.
Like taking the time to examine our motivations
Mhm.
and the impact our actions are having.
On ourselves and on others.
Yeah. Like, are we living in accordance with our values?
That's the question.
Are we making the world a better place?
It's about becoming more conscious of our choices and their consequences.
Yeah.
That's how we grow.
Okay, so we've talked about mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and self-reflection.
Powerful tools.
Yeah. Are there any other practices that can help us cultivate this inner harmony?
Absolutely. The source material mentions a few others.
Okay, tell me.
Well, connecting with nature can be really grounding.
Okay, nature,
Yeah.
getting out in the fresh air.
It reminds us that we're part of something bigger than ourselves.
And it can be really calming, too.
Yeah, very calming.
What else?
Creative expression is another powerful practice.
Oh, yeah, like art or music or writing.
Anything that allows you to tap into your inner wisdom
Okay.
and channel your emotions constructively.
Okay, so express yourself.
Express yourself, yeah.
And then what about physical activity?
Physical activity is essential too.
Like exercise?
Exercise, yeah.
Or yoga or dance or just going for a walk.
Moving your body helps to release pent-up energy,
Okay.
and it can clear the mind.
So it's like taking care of ourselves holistically, right?
Exactly. It's about taking a holistic approach to personal growth
Oh,
and aligning ourselves with these principles.
really?
It's a lifelong journey,
Yeah.
not a destination.
Okay, so we've explored these inner workings of natural law.
The internal landscape.
Yeah, and how it shapes our thoughts and our emotions and our actions.
Right.
But what about the future?
Ah, the big question.
Because it feels like we're at a crossroads, right?
We are, yeah.
There's so much going on in the world.
So much change happening.
Yeah, a lot of challenges.
Challenges and opportunities.
So how can natural law help us navigate these turbulent times?
Well, the source material reminds us that the future isn't predetermined.
Okay.
It's shaped by the choices we make.
Individually and collectively.
Exactly.
Okay.
And those choices are influenced by our understanding of these principles.
So if we choose to live in accordance with natural law,
Yeah.
if we choose to respect the life, liberty, and property of others, if we cultivate our conscience, if we take responsibility for our actions,
All of those things.
we create this ripple effect
We do.
that can actually transform the world.
We create a better world.
So each of us actually has a role to play in shaping the future.
We all have a part to play.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
It gives me hope.
Hope is essential.
Yeah,
Never lose hope.
because sometimes it feels like things are just getting worse.
I know.
But if enough of us start living by these principles,
Yeah.
things can change.
Things can change for the better.
Wow, okay.
It's about holding on to that vision of a better world
Yeah.
and working towards it with determination and compassion.
I love that.
That's the path forward.
This has been such an incredible deep dive. I feel like we've really gone deep.
We've explored a lot of territory.
We've talked about morality and conscience and self-ownership and community.
all the big stuff.
Yeah, all the big
The
stuff.
foundations of a just and free society.
And we've talked about how to actually put these principles into practice
Yeah, the rubber meets the road
in our own lives.
in our own lives.
So to everyone listening out there,
Yeah.
I encourage you to take some time to reflect on what resonated with you most during this deep dive.
Yeah. What stood out for you?
What insights sparked your curiosity?
Yeah, made you think.
What principles felt most relevant to your own life?
What are you going to take away from this?
How might you integrate these ideas into your daily choices and interactions?
How can you live this?
Because this journey of understanding and applying natural law,
Yeah.
it's ongoing.
It's a lifelong process
It's a lifelong process.
of learning and growing.
Yeah, and it's about recognizing that we are sovereign beings.
We are.
We have the power to create the world we want to live in.
We do.
So thank you for joining us on this journey.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring and empowering.
We hope it's given you some food for thought.
Yeah.
And some tools to create positive change in your life and in the world.
So until next time,
Keep seeking.
keep questioning
Keep learning.
and keep living in alignment with these principles
Yeah.
that guide us towards a world.
A world where freedom and justice and harmony prevail.
Exactly.
That's the dream.
That's the dream.
Let's make it a reality.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Peace out.